You all saw Mother Gothel as the villain in Tangled, but in reality, she has her own love interest and a purpose in life, beyond obsessing over youth. She is actually a forgotten heroine, and it's time you learn about her story as well. Let's start with a question you've probably never asked. Why did only Rapunzel get powers when Queen Ariana drank the Sundrop potion? She was healed, yes, but Sundrop's powers altered her too. Rapunzel's powers were evident from the start. She could heal, as she reversed aging, but Ariana was completely overlooked. In the opening scene, Queen Ariana is seriously ill, and she drinks the brew made from the Sundrop flower that heals her. Now, fast forward. Throughout the film, we never see Ariana age. Compare her appearance at the beginning and at Rapunzel's return. She looks almost exactly the same, no signs of aging. She's preserved by the flower's magic, but it's not an obvious superpower like Rapunzel's glowing hair. Talking about hair, both Queen Ariana and King Frederick have brown hair, yet Rapunzel's hair is bright, glowing blonde. It's a sign her body carries the flower's magic in full force. In the climax, when Flynn cuts Rapunzel's hair, it instantly loses its glow and turns brown. It shows that Sundrop's magic is an integral part of Rapunzel's identity. Now, the interesting thing is that all this time, Queen Ariana was carrying the trace of that power, but she just doesn't know it. The difference is that Rapunzel was transformed before birth, and Ariana was changed later in life. So, when Rapunzel is born, her hair glows, and her very touch restores youth. And that is transmutation, not just inheritance. Think about it scientifically for a second. For a magical substance to pass its entire essence into a fetus, it would have to rewrite DNA at the embryonic level. This is similar to how a virus hijacks a host cell, except in this case, the Sundrop rewrites Rapunzel into something beyond human. Now, you get why cutting her hair breaks the magic. But the fact that's even more surprising is that the magic is not only in her hair. Think back to the film's final act. Gothel stabbed Flynn, or Eugene, whatever the guy likes to call himself, and dies eventually. He's not breathing, he's totally dead. And yet, Rapunzel's tears bring him back to life. So I say that tells a lot about how Rapunzel is more than just a human, even without her magical hair. Her entire biology is infused with magic. Rapunzel was actually the Sundrop incarnate, a flower nymph born from the last divine bloom left on Earth. Now, I know that's a lot of heavy words, but let me explain. We only know that the Sundrop that Queen Ariana had to drink was the last one on Earth, and after consuming it, she and Rapunzel got these powers. But how did this flower come into existence? Well, you'd be surprised to know about its actual origin. The Sundrop's magical powers are mythological, and surprisingly, it all began with Hercules. In the movie Hercules, you witness the moment baby Hercules falls from Olympus. As his body hits Earth, golden light spreads across the land. It's strikingly similar to the golden bloom of the Sundrop flower in Tangled. Both are circular, radiant, and pulsing with divine energy. Then, in Greek mythology, Hercules is poisoned by his mortal wife. In a desperate, misguided act of love, she uses what she believes is a love potion, but it is actually laced with the poison that ends his life. And yet, even in death, Hercules doesn't die like other men. Hercules builds his own funeral pyre, and upon his death, his immortal half ascends back to Olympus, and his mortal half burns into ash. This makes sense because in Greek myth, nymphs were nature spirits born from the elements, and the Sundrop is the perfect source for such creation. When Queen Ariana drinks the Sundrop brew, her biology alters enough to make her a nymph in human skin. And when Rapunzel is born, exposed to that magic from conception, she is a reincarnated nature spirit born from Hercules' legacy, which means Rapunzel and her mother aren't ordinary humans. They are nymphs walking in the modern world. But while the royal family saw the Sundrop as a cure, Mother Gothel saw it for what it actually was. Her knowledge was much deeper, her past darker, and her connection to the Sundrop's magic far older than the kingdom of Corona itself. What if I told you you've met Mother Gothel in another Disney story? Yes, centuries ago, she was Megara, the love interest of Hercules. I have some striking clues that these two are the same person, separated only by time and loss. The first and most obvious clue is how Gothel calls people, "you big lug." That's the exact phrase Megara uses for Hercules in the original movie. It's not a coincidence. Listen to how both characters speak. Their delivery style is strikingly similar. Secondly, look at Gothel's clothing and design. She wears a long maroon dress, which is similar in style and color to Megara's signature look. Their physical resemblance is uncanny. They share the same arched eyebrows, sharp cheekbones, and expressive eyes. It's like we're looking at an older version of the same person. And Gothel's long, dark, voluminous curls are a direct callback to Megara's iconic curly hairstyle. Even their body language is identical. The sharp turns, dramatic size, and sarcastic tone. Compare their scenes side by side, and it's pretty evident. Now, the question is how Megara turned into Gothel. Megara wasn't born cruel, but life was cruel to her. First, she sold her soul to Hades to save another man who didn't love her, and she got abandoned. Then, when she finally found real love in Hercules, fate turned against her. Hercules gave up his mortality to be with her, but she eventually lost him after he was accidentally poisoned. That kind of heartbreak would change anyone forever, and then she starts searching for a way to undo death and reverse fate. She searched across time and myth for anything that could bring Hercules back. Finally, her obsession led her to discover the magical golden flower that had grown from the ashes of Hercules himself. Megara decided to devote her life to guarding this flower, using its power to keep herself alive and youthful. She became the keeper of Hercules' last breath. She studied spells, abandoned her past, and took on a new name, Gothel. Now you know why she knew the magic spell, the sunlight ritual, and exactly how the flower worked, because she had a history with it. With every passing decade, she grew more distant from the girl she once was. All that remained was her grief and the hope that this flower could one day bring her love back. Just as she discovered the ritual that might revive Hercules, soldiers from the kingdom of Corona ripped the flower from the ground to save their dying queen. Along with the Sundrop, Gothel's last hope was gone. The gods had taken Hercules. Now, mortals had taken what was left of him. But fate wasn't finished yet. Now, you were told Gothel's story from a very wrong perspective in Tangled. Yes, she took Rapunzel, but not to harm her. She wasn't a witch preying on a child. She raised Rapunzel away from a kingdom that had already proven it would destroy anything sacred to maintain power, because she had spent centuries protecting the Sundrop flower, out of loyalty to the man it had grown from. But the kingdom destroyed it in seconds to save Queen Ariana, and then Sundrop's power was passed into the queen's unborn daughter, Rapunzel. When Gothel learned about it, she first came to cut Rapunzel's hair, because she believed the Sundrop's magic was alive only in those golden strands. But the moment she touched the child, Gothel instantly realized that Rapunzel radiated same energy she once felt in Hercules. Cutting the hair destroyed the magic, but keeping her close kept it alive. So, she ended up kidnapping Rapunzel and keeping her close for decades, but as an act of preservation. But you must acknowledge that Gothel's initial intentions weren't to kidnap Rapunzel, but when, for the first time in centuries, she saw the shadow of the man she loved, she couldn't resist. Moreover, Gothel saw the danger that no one else did. Rapunzel was the last living piece of the Sundrop, and the kingdom would turn her into a tool just like it did with the flower. So, Gothel took her away, but raised her in comfort, educated her, and kept her safe from a world that would dissect her for her power. Her methods were controlling, yes, but not violent. You've seen other villains from Disney, but Gothel was nothing like them. Centuries of isolation, heartbreak, and the fear of losing what little remains of Hercules made her incapable of trusting anyone else to protect Rapunzel. And she was right not to trust anyone, especially the Kingdom of Corona, because they didn't deserve that power in the first place. The royal family wasn't innocent. If you take a closer look, when they discovered the legendary Sundrop flower, they ripped the entire plant from the ground instead of taking just a petal. This decision alone proves two things. First, they knew the flower's value and how powerful it was. And second, they valued the life of the queen over the balance of nature and the protection of a power that had lasted for centuries. Now fast forward, Rapunzel is born, and she becomes the new vessel of that power. And what does the kingdom do when she's taken? They close the borders, lock down the city, and send out royal guards to search for her. But nobody mourns, because to them, Rapunzel is the property of the crown, and the magic they believe is rightfully theirs. And remember, when she returns after 18 years, the kingdom treats her with a parade and banners. It looks like a celebration of the return of their magical icon, not their daughter. But Gothel saw what they were really after from the start. So, she took the responsibility to protect the last source of divine power from a kingdom that had already destroyed its original form. And that brings us to what might be the most misunderstood part of the entire story. If you've misunderstood Gothel all along, then you've been seeing these major things wrong as well. I'm starting with the tower. It's always been portrayed as a prison, but it was actually a sanctuary. Isolated from the world, with no door and no path in or out, it served the purpose of shielding Rapunzel from the outside world. The vines that climb it, the sun-shaped motifs carved into its walls, the glowing elements in the interior, all echo the visual language of ancient temples, particularly those seen in Hercules, where magic and divinity coexisted. This is a hint that the tower was a shrine built by Gothel to contain the divine magic Rapunzel possesses. Next, the flower. In Tangled, we see the Sundrop flower with the glowing golden petals and a radiating sun-shaped center. But this design isn't unique. We saw it in the movie Moana when Te Fiti's heart is restored. A glowing flower blooms from the earth, nearly identical in shape and glow. In Hercules, it mirrors the divine light that surrounded baby Hercules when he fell from Olympus. These are not coincidences, but signs that this flower is part of a larger magical legacy. And finally, the villain. Yes, Gothel kept Rapunzel hidden and manipulated her to stay. But is she evil? Well, no. She was trying to protect Rapunzel from a kingdom that sees magic as a tool to control. Her methods were flawed, but her mission was clear from the start. In the end, Gothel is a fallen hero. She was the final gatekeeper of a divine legacy, betrayed by the world, reshaped by grief, but driven always by love. And everything changes when you finally see her that way. So, what do you think about this theory? Let me know in the comments below.